Hello, everyone. Welcome to your Astro-Weather Check episode for Tuesday's Taurus new moon. I hit record. Today is Friday, May 3rd. It's about 10:20 a.m. here on the East Coast in Atlantic City, New Jersey, just for that time date stamp reference. If it's Friday, it's Venus's day, and we're going to dive pretty deeply into Venus today in our discussion about the new moon, but also all the energy and planets that we have moving through the sign of Taurus this month, which is really exciting. We are coming off of, I know everyone knows this already because we all experienced it, but a extremely intense April, to say the least. And the energy of May will still have its challenges to an extent, but it's going to feel a lot better. We are now on the other side of eclipse season. I touched on that in the last Astro Weather Check when I talked about the Scorpio full moon. That was the closeout. And now we're in a new month. The planets are shifting. We still have clustering, which we'll talk about when we look at the chart for the new moon, but it's very different. The energy is very different. But now it's up to us at this point what we want to do with what happened in our lives during the eclipse season. We are closing out the lunar cycle in the short term for the total solar eclipse that we had roughly a month ago. If you've been with me for a little while, you know that I really do prefer to work with the lunar cycles for the long game, so 6 months rather than one. But there's still a closing out of it, energetically anyway, because that's how the moon works. So we'll talk about that. I just wanted to bring this episode to everybody a little bit earlier than I usually do, just to touch on some of the energies of the beginning of this month. The middle of the month is really, really potent, so we'll touch on that too. But I just want to reassure everybody that the energy will be, like I said, still a little challenging, but very different, much more grounded, way less chaotic, thankfully. And like I said, it's up to us at this point. So on the other side of an eclipse season, we have the integration part. So it's a good time to reflect and review, especially since we have the Mercury retrograde on top of it. So it was, just extra with all of that also. So we have the opportunity now to reflect and review on whatever happened in our lives, whatever changes happened, whether they were subtle or big ones, whatever nudges from spirit or from our own soul's paths happened to just get us more into who we are. We talked about those themes. I'll link to the last couple episodes in case anyone's new here or in case you want to go back and review the material, just so you have a better idea now. Like in the moment, sometimes it's not clear what the energies are really saying. Like I do these astro weather checks before the energies actually happen, and then it happens and it's like, oh wow, well that was certainly something that was a big theme, or maybe it wasn't. Take what resonates, leave what doesn't. So we're in the time where we get to reweave. I'll include a link to our soul broadcast for last month as well. We get to have a proactive role in the putting back together of whatever fell apart. And it's a really beautiful time and energy that's coming in to help us do that. With Taurus, it's grounded. It is very much in relation to our material world, so possessions, finances, that kind of thing. But it's also extremely sensual. Taurus is the sensual sign. It's the sign that relates most to our senses and our physical experience in these bodies. So it's just really nice to maybe just buy yourself some roses and sit down and just journal and reflect and take a bath, maybe just do something, eat something nice that makes you feel good, that pleasure, just all about pleasure. So make the experience as physically pleasurable as possible while you're in this space of integration, like I said, and kind of putting the pieces back together. So let's look at the chart so that I can actually better explain it. So the new moon is on Tuesday, like I said, so 5/7 at roughly 11:21, 11:22 p.m. here on the East Coast. So this is our chart. And as you can see, I said we still have clusters. So Clusters, stelliums, 3 or more planets in one sign, in Taurus as well as in Aries. But if you look at this chart for this new moon, so it'll be at 18 degrees of Taurus, there's not a lot of red, which is nice, really nice. We've had a lot of red, a lot of squares, a lot of challenges the last couple astro weather checks. So this energy is actually really, really beautiful. And I am thinking that this new moon is just going to feel extremely magical. Like I said, we get to actually take action steps now and create our own path forward, co-create with the universe. Really, if you do new moon intention ceremonies or anything like that, just really pay attention to, like I said, what you want to do on the other side of whatever happened, whatever changes, reweavings, whatever, since pretty much the beginning of March. And take, like I said, what resonates, leave what doesn't, and you get to co-create with the universe and rebuild your life or whatever into something even better for yourself. This energy right now and through the month of May is very much about our own personal power and have intentional, grounded steps to take action into just creating a better world, life for ourselves. But there's a, humanitarian collective element to this as well. And I say that because as each planet moves into Taurus, and I'll give you some dates for reference. We've already had some shifts since the last Astro-Weather check I did. They're going to, Pluto will square and has squared everything that shifted into the sign of Taurus. So we talked about that Scorpio full moon. It was the twice a year square between Pluto and the sun, squared Pluto and the moon as well, because it was the full moon and the moon was on the opposite side of the sun. So that kind of kicked off the party with things shifting into Taurus and squaring Pluto. So the first one that just did now, as the month of May has begun, is Venus. So that's going to bring up power dynamics and relationships. But I want you to think about this. I'm going to touch on this in the oracle cards that I'm going to read for us at the end of today's episode. Remember what I said about the divine feminine and the divine masculine when I talked about the energy of the eclipse and the new moon in Aries, because there was definitely an element there that I thought was really key to bring up at that point in time. And it's coming into play now on the other side of everything. So, and that does have to do also with the planets squaring Pluto as they shift into the sign of Taurus. So with Venus, it's our divine feminine. It's everything we love and value in our lives, how we value ourselves, our relationship with ourself, as that's the one that has to come first. And with all of the energy that we had in Aries, especially all the energy we had around the new moon in Aries, the total solar eclipse, the full moon in Scorpio, it definitely a lot rose to the surface around relationships in general. Those have just been general themes for a while now. And Venus is the personal planet that relates most. So the sun, like I said, started the party back with the full moon, and I touched on that in the last astro weather check on May, let's see, on the 1st, so a couple days ago. Venus had shifted into Taurus. Let's see, let me just get you with dates because that was at the end of April. Venus shifted into Taurus on the 29th of April, and then Mars shifted into Aries on the 30th of April. So those two are actually what I'm going to get to. So Pluto's still sitting at 2 degrees of Aquarius. We've touched on this a lot this year. Pluto just turned retrograde yesterday. So it's going to start its backtrack into Capricorn for the next several months. And we'll touch on that in future astro weather checks. I just want to make sure I'm mentioning the squares because that's what's feeding into the energy of this month as well as this new moon. So if anything came up yesterday on the 1st, on the 30th, on the 29th, around relationships, then that's why. So Venus is actually in charge of this new moon. Taurus is one of the signs that Venus rules. And that really gives us a good opportunity to get in touch with Venus. If you don't already have a dialogue with the planets, like I've talked about this before, I kind of work with them just like I would a spirit guide or an angel. I have a dialogue with them at all times, usually, especially when I'm wanting to teach something or bring information down to talk about in a podcast episode, an Astro-Weather Check, in my writing, whatever. So it's a really good time to connect. But in this space that we're in now with Venus's cycle, Venus is invisible. So that's the one kind of hidden thing that might be a little bit not challenging, but kind of hard to put your finger on with the energy of this new moon, because the ruler is actually now in what's called under the beams of the sun, so invisible. Venus is in the part of the cycle where Venus is traveling on the other side of the sun. So that happens every time in Venus's cycle. And that's usually about 2 months-ish when Venus will travel from being visible in the morning sky to behind the sun to then being visible in the evening sky. So we have this time period now where Venus is kind of in charge of Taurus season. Venus is in charge of this new moon and all the things that all the planets that are going to meet up with everything that's in Taurus right now. But there's an invisibility factor. So the connection, opening the dialogue, creating the space, doing the meditation, we have to do in our hearts and in our imaginations, because usually I say have that visual connection. That's the best way. But right now we don't. So I think that's a really cool kind of hidden thing to tap into a little bit if you choose to. I have a really beautiful connecting with Venus meditation that I'll also put a link to in the episode notes if you care to check that out. That could be a cool way to do it. It's just meditation with the goddess, and it's based on the story of the birth of Venus, and you just get to connect with the energy and the goddess in general, and it's just really cool. So that's the one thing I wanted to mention. But also too, Venus and Taurus, Venus is in one of our home signs. So there's just power behind this too, with the shift out of Aries, which is not a sign that she likes to be in, into Taurus, and kind of just being in charge and in her home sign, and just in a really good space for the energy moving forward. So that's what I wanted to mention about Venus, and just Venus sharing and infusing energy with the sun in general. Venus is at 10 degrees at the time of the new moon. Like I said, the new moon's at 18, so pretty close. So we have that after the time that Venus squared Pluto as Venus shifted into Taurus, which I've already mentioned. So we have the new moon on the 7th, and I just want to touch on everything that's still in the sign of Aries. So we have Mercury, like I said. The retrograde officially ended on the 25th of April. However, we're still in the post-retrograde shadow period, which is just, in plain English, Mercury going quote unquote direct over the same degrees of the zodiac that Mercury was retrograde. So that will be in the post-retrograde period will end on May 13th. So we're still in that integration phase of the Mercury retrograde on top of the integration phase of the eclipse season. So those two are kind of still working on us in tandem. There's still a lot of glitches and Mercury tricks that I've been experiencing in technology, like internet, email communication, that kind of stuff. So Mercury's still got tricks, as I usually say when I'm experiencing those things, in particular once the retrograde is over, which is usually not the case, but it is Aries and it's, fast moving energy. So that probably is something that's coming into play. So Mercury's still in Aries, Chiron's still in Aries. At the time of this new moon, they are together as well. So they're both at 21 degrees of the sign of Aries. So there's still an element to our own personal and collective healing journeys infused into the energy of this new moon as well, which I think adds to the potency of it. Being on the other side, still being in the integration phase, this is what I'm saying. Like, it's a really good time right now. This is why I want to bring this to you early, to infuse your intentions with intent. I guess that's the best way I can say it. But your own path, your own journey, your own healing, the relationship with yourself should be first and foremost in grounding and manifesting and whatever you're looking to co-create with the universe in the energy of the new moon. Mars is now in Aries, like I said, also in rulership and at its home sign. Mars rules Aries and Scorpio. So coming out of Pisces, this is a much better position for Mars to be in. Mars is sort of drying off now, coming out of the ocean. Think of like a surfer coming out of the water and just like shaking everything off. And now it's time to, like I said, action steps, move forward, come up with a plan. Be in your personal power, come out on the other side of all of this with moving forward energy, forward momentum, but also maybe having more courage in something that you've wanted to do, or path forward, because we still have the North Node in Aries, and the North Node's still involved in this story in a big way. We've talked about this. South Node's a point of release. South Node's still on the other side in the sign of Libra. So there's still that energy of releasing things that disturb our peace, relationships, balance. All those things are still very present in the story that we're currently living in, personally and collectively. North Node's the path forward. North Node's where we grow. North Node usually involves confronting or facing some kind of fear on some level, but coming out on the other side of it better, patting yourself on the back, like you did the thing, good job, go you. So these are the themes that are still with us, but also infusing now, moving forward into the new moon energy as well. So there's Mars, which I also wanted to touch on. So we have Venus and Taurus in rulership, Mars and Aries in rulership. So this is good for the path forward for the integration phase. And then as the planets will move on into this month, they will meet up with the sun. And so Venus and the sun will be traveling together for a while. The moon meeting up with the sun, we know that happens once a month with every new moon. We will also have our annual, and I'm going a little after the new moon because I feel like it's important to touch on this, and I probably won't be back with you until just before the Sagittarius full moon around the 20th. So the 13th, Mercury post retrograde's over. The sun and Uranus will have their annual meetup, and that's just, we talked about Uranus extensively in this project of mine in becoming Chiron, but also in Astro-Weather Checks. It's our individuation journey. It's our revolution energy. It's electric. There's some kind of gift. So whenever the sun meets up with Uranus once a year, and that energy will be infused on the other side of the new moon. And then the sun and Jupiter will meet up also. So like I said, everything in Taurus is having a meet up with the sun. So it's very important, like I said, to just kind of focus on your personal part of this story and journey, because the sun is just who we are at our core and our consciousness. We have a really good opportunity in all this too, to just expand our consciousness in some way, to release something that's been holding us back, to just let go of things that are not you. So there's that energy as well. Like the 18th of this month is a really big day. We'll have Venus will also meet up with Uranus as Venus is traveling through Taurus. So we have that energy infused into it too. So maybe just some kind of surprising energy around everything that in the work that you're doing on the other side of all this. It's going to involve relationships, maybe a surprise in a relationship in some way. So we have that. The sun and Jupiter will come together. And the sun and Uranus will have already met up. So big energy in Taurus. Big energy in that part of your chart. With this new moon, if you're a Taurus rising like me, you get a fresh start now with the new moons going around the wheel of your chart. So it'll be in your first house. So that's just like extra potent energy. That's where a lot of the action has been happening. We talked about Jupiter and Uranus coming together in the last Astro-Weather Check, which happened on the 20th, which only happens every 14 years. So there's really big energy in Taurus, and that's going to continue through the month of May. And then also this month, and I'll touch on this next time, Jupiter will be changing signs, which happens only roughly every year. So Jupiter shifted into Taurus back in May of last year. Jupiter will exit Taurus this year in May, and we'll have a new energy with Jupiter as well. So this is a really good time. Like I said, like everything's kind of coming to the last, like Jupiter will be at the final degrees of Taurus around that time. It's like pregnant with the energy of the sign. It's full of that Taurian energy and that sensual experience and the expansion of whatever happened for you over the last year, carrying that forward into a new energy, into a new space of your chart. The other thing that we have supporting the energy even more of the new moon that's coming is energy from Saturn, just supporting it. It's called a sextile. That's this little blue line right here. So we have Saturn on our side in this. Saturn's usually the one bringing challenges. I always say it's being called to the principal's office. But this time around, Saturn's helping us. Saturn's giving us supportive energy and taking responsibility for everything. Supportive energy in moving forward with whatever we're putting the attention into this time around. Moving forward after the eclipse season and everything, that the big energies we've had pretty much for the entire beginning of this year, really. So we have Saturn on our side, which is great, which is another thing I love about the energy of this new moon. The one thing I want to point out that I think isn't getting enough attention, since we've had so many other things to focus on, is Neptune. And we've talked about Neptune before in previous episodes and in previous Astro-Weather checks, but also episodes of Becoming Chiron. Neptune's at the end of Pisces right now at the 29th degree. And like I said, that last degree of a zodiac sign is like being pregnant with all that energy. Neptune's the modern ruler of the sign of Pisces. And Neptune relates to our dreams, our connection to source, like in a big way, our transcendence journey, the collective sub and unconscious to an extent. And Neptune hasn't been at this degree in our lifetimes yet. So I just want to point that out. Neptune will change signs, I believe, next year. And that doesn't happen very often. I think Neptune entered Aries back in 2012, maybe. Don't quote me on that, but it's been a while. Neptune's been in Pisces for a while. Did I say Aries? I'm sorry, I meant Pisces. Neptune's been in Pisces for a while. It's been influencing that part of our chart for a very long time, many, many years at this point. Neptune moves very slowly. It's like 165 or 68 years to go all the way around. So we only experience Neptune going over part of our chart in our entire lifetimes as well. I say that about the planet Pluto, about Uranus to an extent. But those Pluto and Neptune are the two slowest moving. So if you've noticed anything in particular about your dreamscape, or just maybe a little undertone of some confusing energy kind of going through this. We talked about Mars and Neptune coming together. That's the last time they will come together in the sign of Pisces in our lifetimes. And we talked about that in the last Astro-Weather check. So I think that's something that's noteworthy that I feel like a lot of attention is being distracted away from that into other things, like as if there isn't enough to talk about already. But I just want to make sure I touched on that. My dreams personally have been extremely vivid, different. So there's information coming up and in, and I think Neptune has a lot to do with it. It also depends on where Pisces is in your own chart. So just pay attention, because that could be something that's related to the healing journey part of all this, or parts of your subconscious that kind of want to come out in anything, or parts of you that are speaking up now that maybe haven't before, since we haven't experienced Neptune at this degree yet. So the dreamscape and things that are coming up for processing, for healing, intuitive information, pay attention to all of that too. I think that that's a really important element and undertone that is worth mentioning, but also really paying attention to, especially moving forward. So we had a little reprieve of all planets being direct for like 5 days. And then, like I said, now Pluto has turned retrograde, and then one by one, the outer planets will start turning retrograde. So between April 25th and yesterday, we had almost a week of everything still moving forward. And now we're going to start kind of reviewing parts of the journey and being in that space where a lot of planets will be retrograde. So I think that that's all I wanted to cover Astro-Weather check wise as far as the new moon and the energy of May goes. It's a lot. It's like I said, very different, but still there's challenges still. There's still squares, but they're different. Remember back in the winter, everything had its meetup with Pluto, and now it's moved forward into the square space. Taurus and Aquarius square each other. So you may want to even go back to the episodes I did earlier in the year where we talked about Mars and Venus coming together, Aquarius season, and things meeting up with Pluto back then, just to get a better picture of maybe tracing back to see what was happening and kind of where you are now. That's a really cool way to work with astrology, especially if you know your own chart. So we'll stop the share there and let's get to the cards because these are cool. So I want to touch on that divine feminine, divine masculine subject again because of where Venus and Mars are, because of the energy from the eclipse, because of the fact that we did have Mars and Venus come together back in February on 222. So I think that that's something also that's noteworthy to carry forward into this energy, especially where we are now, cosmically, where the planets are, the energy of this new moon in particular. So I pulled a card earlier this week for somebody that I want to share with all of you today. And it's from my Spirit Cards Oracle deck. This is a really cool deck. I highly recommend. It's by John Mosley. And I got introduced to this deck by a couple of old friends when I did a really cool channeling healing session with them. It was by far one of the coolest experiences of my life. And they pulled from this deck for me that day. And then I was so moved by the message that I got it for myself. So the cover art for the deck is card number 1 in the deck, and it's the Goddess Rising card. So I think that's going to be my new moon tagline this time around, is Goddess Rising. And this deck is really cool because it pulls in sacred geometry and the symbol, the Sri Yantra, which is all about not combining, but bringing together the divine feminine and the divine masculine. In this deck, it's called the divine feminine and the sacred masculine. So maybe even pull this symbol into something in your work and your intentions, whatever you decide to do for the new moon. But look at that. Like the artwork on these cards is just gorgeous. And it's card number 1, which I love since we're kind of on a new journey on the other side of all this anyway. In some way, I'm sure everybody's on some kind of, new path or setting forward into motion something new. So we have Venus and Mars on our side. So I want to read this card, the message on this card, and then also the Divine Union card, which is all about infusing and balancing the two, the divine masculine or sacred masculine and divine feminine. So the Goddess Rising card message, embodiment, empowerment, awakening. I am the power of the feminine in her full glory, goddess of the chosen ones. I am your beckoning and illumination of the power you hold. For I am within you as you, representing your full mastery. I call upon you now, sacred one. You are the keeper of great teachings. Open to this now. For I am your destiny and your intuition that is guiding you home. Goddess Rising, also called Gaia or Pachamama, is in some cultures is the divine feminine in her creative power that sustains life on this earth. She is the fertility goddess who embodies all of creation. Whether overseeing plantings and harvests or sending earthquakes and floods to restore balance, she is responsible for nature's harmony. The Goddess Rising is a powerful reminder to respect and honor all creation as the same life force flows through us all. In this painting, the Goddess Rising is shown standing in front of the rising sun in a pond of clear water formed from the waterfall that flows from her heart. This water represents the life-giving essence of unconditional love. Her left hand holds her cloak Open, revealing Black Panther spirit, right there. Symbol of ferocity and protection, qualities that allow her to be in her femininity and softness without fear. The macaw spirits to her side symbolize being visible and shining her beauty into the world. The irises to her other side signify natural royalty and wisdom. At the center of her crown is a chrysalis, symbol of transformation and rebirth. Snake spirit coils around her left arm, representing the process of transmutation. Perfectly aligning with her sacred form is the sacred geometry of the Sri Yantra, signifying the perfect balance of the divine feminine and sacred masculine. The Goddess Rising card is a message to fully awaken to the remembrance of the sacred being that you are. Even when things are in seeming disarray or upheaval, you are only experiencing the natural forces according to the law of balance. This is the grace of spirit, restoring you to wholeness and further aligning you along your path. Stand confidently in your power. Take time to honor and be present with the rhythms of your own body, knowing these rhythms are one and the same with the intelligence, wisdom, and perfection of nature and the sacred Goddess Rising herself. Aho, Goddess Rising. So that is beautiful. I love that card so much. And then Divine Union. So this one came up in our live readings on Tuesday for somebody. And I think this one's really important to also pay attention to, particularly as it relates to the divine union of the two energies, the sacred masculine and divine feminine within ourselves. I think we're kind of on this path collectively and individually to really pay attention to the integration of that, especially with Mars and Venus coming together earlier this year, especially with where they are right now, Mars in Aries, Venus in Taurus. Like those two planets are the representation and correspondence of the divine sacred masculine and feminine in the sky, in the cosmos, and also with the sun and the moon. So when I pull up this and when I read from this, obviously pay attention to whatever resonates for you, but my suggestion is to pay attention to how this relates to the relationship of the two within yourself. Because I feel like the divine union of the two, where it begins within ourselves, is how we help the collective. I mean, look at what's happening. I feel like I've been saying this now more so than not. Look what's happening in the world. The unbalance needs to come back into balance in a healthy way. So it starts with us. And then once we work on that within ourselves, once we pull in the figure 8, this card is number 8, once we pull in that infinite energy, it then can ripple out from us into the collective. So pay attention to that as I read the words for this card. Intimacy, alchemy, unity. Beloved, I am a mirror uncovering all that is sacred in you. Coming together, we hold an opportunity to remember the beauty of truth. Whether human to human or through a divine marriage within, we are meant to come home again. Unity is in our consciousness, a powerful masculine and feminine emergence. Alone, you hold the totality of what it means to be in divine union. Welcome this, offer it up in service to your greatest transformation. Divine union is the unity of the divine feminine and sacred masculine in perfect balance and harmony. The feminine without the witnessing and structure of the masculine becomes ungrounded without awareness or place of meaning. When the feminine is seen and held by a caring and powerful masculine energy, she relaxes into her softness and beauty, and can fully embody and express her femininity and grace in the world. The masculine without the feminine becomes aimless in a world without beauty and purpose. He has drive but no meaningful connection to his heart, and is absent his true power. The sacred masculine, beholding the divine feminine, sees the perfection of the goddess. Her beauty and vulnerability opens his heart to love, and his powerful purpose is awakened. In this painting, lovers kiss while two jaguar spirits focus on each other with a focused and steady gaze. A lotus blooms from their third eye, signifies the awakening of spiritual union consciousness within this sacred relationship. Cosmic energy surrounds them, representing the energy of as yet unformed creation. Jaguar spirit is representative of the strength and integrity necessary to make all the choices that were in alignment that ultimately lead to this divine meeting, as well as the prowess to seize upon the cosmic opportunity with no hesitation once it appears. And what was the tagline that I gave the Scorpio full moon last time? Your inner pink lotus. When completely aligned and committed to your own sacred path and connection to Source, you are able to recognize and then surrender to divine union. By loving and deeply accepting of yourself, and trust yourself best to know, be loving and deeply accepting of yourself, and trust yourself best to know your path. In life and love, there are two questions you can ask yourself. Where am I going? Then, who's going with me? But don't get these two reversed. When you let yourself receive the divine love from within, this energy will then be reflected and manifested in your outer world. When you truly love yourself and are walking your own sacred path, your divine beloved appears by your side. So, if you are listening to the audio version of this, I suggest possibly hopping on over to either Spotify or our Sea Goddess YouTube and checking out the video, just because then you'll be able to see the cards if you don't have this deck yourself. And I think I'm going to leave it there for today. I also worked quite a bit over the weekend, last weekend, with Louise Hay's work. You Can Heal Your Life, and some oracle decks of hers that have affirmations. So I think those can be helpful tools in our journey. Especially, I think one thing I also wanted to point out in all of this that I'm discussing today is if you need help, ask for help. Like if there's a healing that you haven't done in a while, or just self-care. Like I said, this is the pleasure month. This is a Taurus season, this is the pleasure season. So maybe just getting a massage or some kind of body work, or just extra baths or showers or something that just helps you kind of cleanse out and move your own energy in some way could be helpful. Or just like I said, buying yourself some roses and just sitting with them. Roses are so powerful and so potent, and the vibration alone is just nice to have around in your home and in your own space and energy. And it's the essential oil that is the signature oil for the sign of Taurus also. So if you have rose oil, maybe just take some hits from the bottle or make yourself an inhaler or something. That could be cool too. Or a candle, or just, eat something that has rose petals in it, make a rose petal tea. Like, I don't know, whatever you can do to kind of just pull that energy in more, I think would be good, especially to help with that connection with Venus, because of us having to have that connection in some other way energetically than visually right now. So yeah, I'm going to leave it there for today. I am going to be probably between this Astro-Weather Check and the next one releasing episode 1 of Becoming Chiron. I have chosen the emotion that we're going to focus on first. It's going to be fear. I got the download, and then I've gotten lots of validation. So I know that's the first one. And I have a pretty good outline of the format that I want the episodes to have. And I'm pretty excited to get the ball rolling on at least the first episode. So I think that'll be helpful for people too in this time, because there's definitely confronting our fears in a big way is a really big part of the integration part of everything. So stay tuned for that. If you are just an Astro Weather Check listener, then the next one will be just ahead of the next full moon, which will be on 5/23. That'll be our Sagittarius full moon. Will be in Gemini season by then. So I'll probably record that one a few days before and get that out to everybody. And yeah, just support, likes, shares, follows are the easiest way. Subscribing, following the show on Spotify, uh, on Apple Podcasts, our YouTube channel. Video episodes, like I said, are only Spotify and YouTube. If you prefer that, you can see the chart that I share and the oracle cards or whatever I'm pulling into each episode. There's a subscription available for anybody that has that little extra and can for $8.99 a month, and that link is at the bottom of every episode description. And you do that through the feed on Spotify for podcasters. And I'm going to leave it there for today. So stay tuned. Also, just subscribing to our email list on Sea Goddess is another way to kind of stay in touch. And I put out every episode on our email list as well as our socials. So yeah, and I'll also, like, I referenced the soul broadcast that we did for April. It was called Reweaving. That's now public. The one that we just put out for May is the topic is surrender. So that'll be available only to our Soul Garden members till the 15th. So you can get early access to that if you join the Soul Garden. It's only $11.11 a month, free 30-day trial included. So if you join and you don't want to stay, you can just, no obligation there. And that includes live readings for members, online soul circles, which I go deeper into the astrology of every month, as well as early access to coupons and the soul broadcasts for the first 2 weeks of every month. So I'll put a link for that also in the episode description. And I'm pretty excited about what we wrote for May. It's got a lot of good content and personal shares from us, and really being on the other side and truly surrendering to the things that we can't carry forward with us in the energy of whatever happened with eclipse season. So super fun things, and not fun. Well, it might not have been the most fun experience, but just trust that it's all for our highest good. And remember, Louise, remember You Can Heal Your Life. That's available on YouTube for free, and she reads the book herself, and it's just beautiful. And there's so much power in her work as well. And I'll put a link for that too in the episode description. It's just kind of resources that are just readily available, as well as my Connecting with Venus meditation. So that's all. Like I said earlier in text to somebody, TTFN, I tapped into Tigger from Winnie the Pooh. Ta-ta for now, till next time. And remember to be a maverick.